3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Happy TV's podcast.
Raw, brazen, and comical. This is the ultimate podcast. IOHO, in our humble opinion.
Hey, shut up lah.
Hello, welcome, namaste, welcome to our weekly podcast, In Our Humble Opinion. Ayo. Okay, so in our humble opinion, first of all, we need to thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening, for the traction. Thank you for your feedback. It was amazing and we really appreciate that, especially about the last episode. You remember we were talking about the foreign workers, how they've been infected by COVID, and how there's been a lot of comments on the net, and there were posts. Particularly, we brought up one post, and that was about this lady talking and telling us, send them back to Blanga. And so we were discussing what is Blanga. And you know what? Some of you have been really kind and wonderful and done research and actually send us feedback and told us what is Blanga. So in Eurasian, Blanga means a clay pot, a cooking pot. And in Malay, it means Periok Blanga means pots and pans. Oh. And so we're going to give the lady the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe she was poetic, right? Because she realized there were no planes to take the foreign workers back. So she maybe wanted to take the foreign workers back in a pot. Okay. Be that as it may, okay, be that as it may. But I want to also share with you this comment that came and said, maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not right to, talk about people's accents or, talk about their incorrect English. Because when we judge the incorrect English or we judge, comments like these, we're actually judging ourselves. Because let's not forget that we've all products of the same Singapore system. All right? So moving on from that story, we're talking about foreign workers. And we always, when we say foreign workers, we always think, they've come in from India or Bangladesh or China. But let's not forget that there are foreign workers who come in from neighboring Malaysia as well. And so I'd like to share with you guys a really feel-good story. I'm sure a lot of you must have read it, but it's got its place here in our humble opinion. And that's because there was this Malaysian worker who was on the PIE and his motorcycle broke down, right? And then there were two good Samaritans, Singaporean Samaritans, who came along, took his bike all the way to the petrol pump, topped it up, filled it up, and paid for it. Amazing. And when this Malaysian worker was like, oh my God, what is happening here? They said, we really appreciate what you do for us. You come from Malaysia, you're here during these tough times. So thank you. So it's wonderful. We see all sides of people. But remember, these are stressful times. And when there are stressful times, there are always controversies coming up day after day. Every day is a controversy. And these controversies really stir up your emotions and get you all riled up, right? Right, guys?
So what's the biggest controversy?
This controversy, that's been going on for a couple of days. And that's about our HBB, our home-based businesses. And as you realize, what happened was there were these clamped down, these measures, these extra measures which were taken for the circuit breakers. And in that, the HBBs were closed down. And in comes this star called Ateeqah Mazlan. And the controversy stirred up. Is she a snitch? Is she not a snitch? Did this happen because of her? Now, what happened? What exactly was the timeline? How this controversy has affected the community, and more so the Malay community in this holy month of Ramadan. And to talk more about that, we have a very special guest here with us today. That is Jamal Mohamad. Let me introduce you to Jamal Mohamad. Jamal, are you here? Who works at the Malay Heritage Centre. So Jamal is going to come here. He's going to talk to us about this HBB controversy, to snitch or not to snitch. Was she really a What did the government do about it? Were the government compassionate? Were they not? And we're going to talk about all this. And to start off, I'm going to hand over to Gilbert. Is Jamal here with us, first of all? Jamal,
Yes, Jamal.
Hi, welcome. Welcome, Jamal. And you are the first guest.
Welcome to IO.
Yes, very good.
Yes. Yes, wonderful. Welcome.
You're the very first guest that we have, so welcome. So why don't you start off by giving us a little bit of intro and background, as we all know that this is a very hot topic when there are a lot of home-based businesses, especially during Ramadan, where home bakers, people who make confections and confectionaries basically earn a living and very often support their families because of the business that they do. And then because of the controversy, because of some so-called clarification attempts, the government responded by saying, no, you're not allowed to do this. As long as you need to have delivery services or people coming to pick it up, we do not allow this. We all have our own humble opinions about this, but why don't you give us some feedback about this, the view from the general Malay community, if that's possible for one person to do, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. I will speak on behalf of the Malay community by virtue of being Malay. Okay, first and foremost, it's a heterogeneous community. It's not a homogeneous community, and also home businesses is not something new. When I was growing up, my mom did some home businesses. She baked kuih, she made some baju raya, she made curtains and stuff. And my wife's mom did similar things. And you ask every other Malay person, chances are they would have a relative who did this when they was growing up. And this is something that's continued up to today. I think bulk of the issue has been about the idea that there was a snitch within the community who said something online that led to the government supposed clampdown. I think this is an issue of timing because there has been a lot of uncertainties with the COVID-19 situation. People have lost jobs even. So the next natural thing, the next most practical thing is for them to do some sort of business at home. And home businesses could be from catering, it could be about fashion, it could be beauty products, multi-level marketing. People can do all sorts of things from home, right? It's just that now, with the COVID-19 measures, can these businesses still go on? And I think there's been a lot of inquiries going back and forth from the home businesses themselves, leading up to the government's decision that was announced on, I think it was Saturday, was it? The BH article was on Saturday, the Straits Times article was on Saturday as well. And Saturday, like most of other Singaporeans, I too just discovered this name Ateeqah on Saturday morning. I didn't know who she was. So it would appear that there has been conversations with the state from before that Saturday. If you watch Ateeqah's video, which I think she deleted already, it was earlier. It was perhaps the weekend before that. I don't know when exactly she published that video because it was taken down. But on Thursday, on the 23rd of April, there were already conversations going back and forth around bakers, blog spots on Facebook, on Instagram. On Friday, there was a blog entry by Pengkritik Sandiwara. And I think this was the one that set the tone for the entire incident. Because in the blog, she shared quite a number of other people's opinions, people's thoughts on the matter. She also shared the video, and in the video, have you guys seen the video?
No, I
have not.
Vanished before.
Yeah, it
Okay,
vanished.
I'll just set the context. So basically what the video did is Ateeqah's talking about, okay, there's this concern about what is allowed, what is not allowed. So she made some inquiries, she called HDB, she called NEA. Some of this appeared in her video. And to me, it really sounded like she wanted to do something good. She wanted to find out what the actual ruling is so she can help her followers and herself, because she also wanted to go into HBB. She had a small business going on in the past, selling, I think, beauty products. And now she wants to try and venture into F&B. So if you watch the video, the tone was quite measured, and it was quite, I think, it was made with the community in mind. It was made for good. But some of the tone, perhaps, maybe she did not have media training lah, but some of the tone perhaps sounded as if it sounded like it was an expose. And the Blogspot called it an expose. And that word doesn't help. People are very sensitive right now. You know, there's all this talk about snitch culture. People are snitching their neighbors for not wearing masks. So people are tense. So when you have a video like this that comes out, and the next day the government releases a statement saying home businesses are not allowed, they put 2 and 2 together and they link it to, oh, it must be her video that led to all this. And I don't think that's the case. I think she tried to do something well. It's just the timing it's terrible timing. People are upset because they've lost jobs and now they have lost a way of making an income. And yeah, my sister-in-law had to cancel all her Hari Raya Kueh orders.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going to get mine.
That's very informative and very good for us to know, to hear from a comprehensive perspective. My question is this. We know that the government is excellent really at dotting every I and crossing every T in general, right? When they come up with new rules and regulations, they're able to be very comprehensive about it. They're technocrats by and large, right? But in this case, it seemed like there was never any mention of HBBs and restrictions on HBBs prior to this, right? So there was a lot of confusion among the people who have HBBs, not just within the Malay community. I know friends who cook as well, Chinese friends, who also, some of them sell it for charity, and some of them sell it for profit, but they do have these things, and they were similarly affected as well. And they were also in confusion. So the general rule in Singapore generally is that the government usually makes things very clear, but in this case, they did not. So what do you guys think about that? And do you think that because of the fact that someone then went and asked the question, it triggered a cascade on the government side, and the government does tend to be very sensitive about these kinds of things. We do not want to do anything, or we won't do anything until someone complains. The moment someone complains, it's like having a cat in HDB. You're not supposed to not supposed to have cat in HDB, but when someone complains, you have HDB calling on your door. Okay, so what are you guys' thoughts about this?
I mean, that's exactly the kind of situation that I think has happened, right? That there was a very broad blanket rule. But if everyone had just kept quiet about it and sold your kueh, hopefully no one will raise any alarms and everything will be fine. And, just to get us through Ramadan at least, right? But because someone wanted to very diligently clarify for everyone, because she did say that she received a lot of confused queries from her followers, right? So she wanted to sort of on their behalf, right? Ask. And that's the problem, right? The one who sort of asked the question ends up being called the snitch, because the broad rule then becomes specific.
But I'm trying to understand something.
That's what
I'm just trying to understand something here, because you can still order from an F&B outlet, and they can use a third-party courier to deliver your orders. Now, what is the difference between getting the same courier to pick up from your home to send to someone else's? What's the big idea? I mean, at least make it clear why are we stopping this?
I suspect it's not the courier. It's not the courier that's the problem. It's the making of the food, because there's no oversight.
But that was not the reason the government gave.
That wasn't the reason provided.
So what's the reason the government gave? Maybe someone can share that.
Yeah.
So they talked about
delivery.
Yeah, it's third-party delivery.
It's a third-party delivery, yes.
If they use that reason, then Chris is right. It's not a good reason,
Because home-based business
I imagined a different reason.
Home-based business, as Jamal has said, has been going on for a while. I mean, across the communities, it's not just in the Malay community. Even during Chinese New Year. I mean, my mom's Peranakan, right? During Chinese New Year, she'll make kueh tats and all that kind of stuff, right? And sell it for cheap, because it is for the season, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. It's allowed for, right? So it is not about the question of whether it's hygienic or not hygienic, because that's not the question, because it's always been allowed for. But they said that during this period of COVID-19, this is where they have got to cut this out. But why? What I'd like to understand is, what is your concern? You want to limit the number of people on the road, but it's still going to be the same bunch of couriers who's been out there all this while.
Okay. The concern was actually for cross-contamination, right? That's the reason Ateeqah made the video. It's cross-contamination to link home-based businesses with COVID-19, spread of COVID-19, which is something I don't think we can prove. It's not something that's shared, right? So that is why she made all these calls. If you look, there was a survey a petition entitled "Support Small Home-Based F&B Businesses," started by
which had
Nadia Faye.
68,000 signatures.
Yeah, it's up to it's up to 70 now. So some of the terms that she stated inside for pickups, she stated possible recommendations to allow home businesses to go on. For example, this should be treated like, for pickups, this should be treated like an essential service. So customers should be allowed to pick up their food the same way they could go to grocery or to buy their essentials, i.e. alone with face masks and without necessary loitering. Regulations essential for F&B establishments. So basically it's suggesting if Food Panda can do it, home businesses can do it as well. If we allow them to do it with these new added measures, there shouldn't be a problem with HBBs continuing as they are.
Okay, so can I just ask just 2 points. First of all, going back a bit about this whole snitch part of it, right? So I'm just thinking about it. Like Gilbert explained, the government is very precise. They think through, I mean, as fast as they possibly can, look at all the options. So hypothetically, I'm just asking you, let us say Ateeqah was not in the picture at all. There was no controversy. She didn't do anything. Are you trying to tell me that the home-based businesses would just have continued, nobody would be the wiser, and the government would just turn a blind eye to it? Is that what we're talking? Because
I don't think so. I think the government has already been in conversations with home-based
correct.
businesses.
So the point
already,
is, irrespective of whether Ateeqah snitched or did not snitch, this would have been their decision. Like all decisions are theirs. I mean, everybody can keep writing or changing or whatever. That's important. And the second thing about this delivery, I'm just trying to understand, because just day before yesterday we were celebrating my son and daughter-in-law's second anniversary, and we had food which was brought in by Gary Baldy. Now, I'm assuming that because when we spoke to them, they said, we have our own set of people who deliver. So is that got to do with, I have my own delivery system, I have my own transport, these same set of guys which are allowed to go? Or is it because of the central cooking system that they have? I mean, I'm just trying to understand how is it similar and not similar.
Based on that, based on on what you're thinking, I don't know whether you're right or wrong as well, but if that really truly is the case, then it is about trying to limit the amount of deliveries being done.
Okay, right.
So if what you say is truly the reason, so that's the reason why we want to stop the community spread, so we slow down the deliveries for delivery guys. That's what that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, and Chris, what do you see about the snitching part? Because I mean, do you really believe that one person could make that much of a difference?
I think she's an easy target.
One thing I've always.
What do you think, Jamal?
Sorry, no, I think she's an easy target. She's an easy target because the government, the state, is this entity that's too big. There's no personal connection to it, right? And so it's a boogeyman, if we want to call the government this scary, omnipresent, big thing that can put us in jail, can fine us and stuff. Ateeqah's a lot smaller. She's an individual. She's a lot easier to be a target. And what she did can easily be misconstrued as leading up to the state's decision. So
do we know, for example, do we know for sure, or was there any indication that the government was already thinking about HBBs and was going to issue clarifications about this, or was it just nebulous? Because
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. You see,
I
so
don't-
my
yeah, we
feeling
don't
is
know.
that because knowing the government the way that we all do, right? They
Correct,
they
yeah.
are very clear about things. They didn't talk about HBBs when they issued the whole COVID-19 restrictions and the circuit breaker. So that was a gray area. And my feeling, this is just my own personal feeling, is that if no one had called to ask different agencies, put it on a blog which reached thousands and thousands of people, then the government probably wouldn't have a need to come and step in and tell you, no, you can't do this. That's just my feeling about it. Until we get evidence otherwise, it seems that,
So you
it
do
was a
feel,
reaction.
yeah. So Gilbert, you do feel that probing or casuism or calling this and
Yes.
calling that was what triggered of this chain of events where they had to come and clarify.
Yeah.
That is what
regardless
so
of
it
who
was
did
a-
it, whether it was Ateeqah or whether it was anyone else, even if like 10 people had called to ask, but the moment it was publicized in a very public way, I think the government then reacts because the government is very careful
Look,
about these kinds of
Correct.
Look,
things.
that lady was just in the wrong place and the wrong time, right? And one thing I've always believed in is that video will never kill the radio stars, etc., etc., etc. Right? You can, as long as you're someone who's got a media presence, man. You're right. The government is a much bigger machine, and that's a very fact. But when you have someone who's from the community and you have a media presence, you say something, and then voila, you can, a small spark can actually start a big bushfire, right? And then all out of the blue, coincidentally perhaps, the government throws this rule, right? And then she's in the middle of it, and the whole thing blows up, right? So I just think she was at the wrong place at the wrong time. She definitely meant her questions or whatever she may have said, right? She must have meant it, right? And maybe that also, however she done it, I didn't see the video, but from what I understand from everything I've been reading so far, is that the way she's done it, the way she said it, right? And I guess it evoked a lot of anxiety and angst. No, anxiety is one thing, angst more so.
Emotions were really stirred.
But what's also
yeah.
missing, I think, from this whole situation is, apart from what Ateeqah did, right? Knowing that there were going to be many families drastically affected by this, I think there was an absence of gentleness and warmth in the application of this rule, whether or not they meant to already cover HBBs at the beginning or whether they decided after it went public. Either way, I think the way that they rolled it out could have alleviated some of that angst. It shouldn't have been Ateeqah fighting the whole community alone.
Yeah. I think that, Jonathan, you're right, because I think that what the government did...
Right, while the rules just roll out impersonally.
Yeah,
right?
I think that the way that they did it, right, this is a very key thing. So when you look at public policy, when you roll out something new, you always have to do, as with many things in life, a risk-reward analysis. So on the one hand, you've got a cost-benefit analysis, right? On the one hand, you have got a lot of home-based people who are really businesses, who are really dependent on this for their livelihood. A lot of very vulnerable people, even in the best of times, this is their only source of livelihood. How much more so in a time like this when the economy is under such stress and people are really needing money, all right? So you've got this very big group of vulnerable people.
There's psychological stress, because it's something they can do to feel useful while they're stuck at home, right?
Yes. And then you've got the issue then of, so that is one consideration the government has to keep in mind. The other one is basically, which is my question, is that, is there any epidemiological evidence that delivery people have been spreading COVID-19? Because if there is, then the government says, okay, we're sorry we have to do this, but look at all of these cases that have come up of delivery people spreading COVID-19. We have to clamp down on this. So this is the analysis that anyone in decision making has to make. I don't see the second part. I didn't see any epidemiological evidence of COVID-19 spread through delivery people or home-based businesses. I think it was a reaction on the government's part that was not very well thought through. That's my personal feeling about it. And therefore, even the way they communicated it when the petition was sent out, for Masagos to say that, oh, be careful, don't incite things. It was very, sort of big brother warning language. Don't incite things, And I think that does a disservice to the very real pain and the very real struggles of a vulnerable group of people. Now, I understand that today the government has announced some measures, financial measures to help.
Yes.
So,
Intan has brought it up.
Thankfully. But Gilbert, I think Gilbert saw this on my social feed over the weekend. Man, I had smoke coming out of my ears. Because there was a post on one of our major broadcasters on the story about this poor lady who's been this is the only way she generates income for her family, and that's by home-based baking, right? She's got a kid who's living on a kidney, and she's surviving this child, right? She's lost that source of income. But the vitriol that I read, the comments made by people in that post are just awful. They are saying things to the extent of you all are being very selfish. Yes, we should stop this. And grow up. Oh my goodness! And the comment came from a child, telling me to grow up. Because all I asked for was, hey, come on, let's think about this person too. You know what I mean? And sure, Gilbert was very right. You can reach out to a ministry as well.
Yeah. The people who are not affected by this, and if they're watching it, it's easy for them to say, oh, no big deal, stop your home-based business. Yeah. Don't eat cakes, can die, is it? That kind of stuff. I think that's very callous and very unfeeling, because these people really are suffering. So, I think that was part of the problem here, was this cascade of events from the expose on Ateeqah's thing to the government's reaction to this by saying you cannot do this, and then warning people not to sign the petition, and or warning about inciting something in society. I think that all of these things were just led to a perfect storm of problems, basically.
Gilbert, I also sorry, David. Honestly, Dr. Faisal's announcement that HBB can apply for a temporary relief fund, I looked up the terms of TRF. So this announcement was made on Monday, 27th of April. It expires today. It expires Thursday, today, 30th of April. And Masagos just shared it last night at around 9 p.m. So how much time do people actually need? I mean, not everyone is friends with Dr. Faisal. He's a nice man, but not all of us are Facebook friends with him. How do we get this information, right? And what does TRF cover? $500, one-time payment, $500, or 30% of income, right? So if I live in a household that requires, I don't know, maybe $1,000 just to support my family, I won't get that with the TRF. Right? As great as a plan this is to support people, it's only covers percentage.
Okay, I just want to say something about what Gilbert was talking about. Yes, Jamal, I agree with what you're saying. It's too fast, the decision cannot be made, and the TRF. But this is coming back to what you mentioned about that there is no proof as such to show that yes, people who are delivery men have, got, there's no number of people who were delivery men who spread this and all. But just being the devil's advocate here, I think all this started off by when PM Lee mentioned about this reservoir of people that we do not know about, that they might, because it is asymptomatic, you could be carrying
the community spread.
What they are trying to do. And again, at no point of time am I saying it's justified or it's right or wrong or no. I am trying to go back and say, how did this start? I mean, the barbers have also been told to stop. I mean, we all have been grumbling, oh my God, look at the hair, John's beard is going crazy. But the point is that they were talking about there are asymptomatic people out there. We don't have any kind of tests yet to prove or to show who's carrying it. Let's just stop coming together as much as we can. No contact. And I suppose this HBB has fallen through these cracks of contact or no contact, because again it goes
No, but
back to
Daisy, no. I'm sorry. I mean, again, this is part of what I was talking about is the kind of the cost-benefit analysis. You see, you can't then say that because there is an unknown reservoir of carriers out there that we're going to then clamp down on the most vulnerable group. Or by doing this, you hit a very vulnerable group. And as what Chris mentioned earlier is that there is very little difference. I can't see any difference between a courier going to pick up bubble tea or tapao food from one restaurant and bringing it to your flat than them delivering something from a home-based business. You see?
I agree, Gilbert. I'm not contradicting, or what you are saying makes absolutely sense. I mean, I cannot find a reason to say that it doesn't. Having said that,
Daisy, if I may.
Of these
Jamal.
people, why are they doing this?
If I may, we have put in place contact tracing very early on, and contact tracing allows us to determine where this person could have gotten the virus from, could have spread it to. And through this contact tracing has allowed us to identify clusters, and those clusters have been published in newspapers. There's new cluster here, new cluster there. We know where those things, those places are, who went to those places. We can identify them. Right? We can almost guess the demographics of people who attended a party at Safra, perhaps. Right? But we don't have similar clusters proving otherwise, that linking it to HBB or linking it to food delivery. We don't have that. Yeah. And how is it we've been able to identify one and not been able to identify the other, but make a ruling for the other? You see, I think that's what Gilbert's concern is.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
No, and it's a correct concern. I'm just trying to go into the heads of those people who are making these decisions and trying to understand that there must be some thinking behind it. If all of us here
I think we're trying to understand quite a number of things, Daisy.
I have a question.
Yes, Jonathan.
I don't know much about how HBBs are sort of overseen, right? Or how they are sort of looked after, or maybe they're not, I'm not sure. But is anyone raising the concern of, let's say, the actual packaging that comes out of these homes? Because if the whole family gets together and they're all helping to bottle and wrap, then basically...
I doubt it.
No, that was never an issue.
Is that a valid concern, Gilbert?
There's not a concern.
Is that a valid concern, COVID-wise, that I pack food and I'm asymptomatic, I'm not wearing gloves, I may not wear a mask because I'm at home, right? Or my child who helps me do the bottle caps may be sneezing.
Yeah, but Jonathan, they didn't raise any of that. If that was the case, that would be the case consistently. COVID and no COVID. Because food hygiene, COVID is not the only virus in the world. There's a lot of bacteria and stuff.
But in the past, that has not been overseen, right? Wear masks even before COVID. That's what I'm asking. What was the level? If there wasn't, then could this be a particular time to be concerned about that because of the pandemic?
Guys, I don't know, but John, what you've just said, man, the last thing we want to do is to then have this whole home-based business thing being, post-COVID, being looked at, and the government's going to say,
so now you understand.
No, we don't want to be responsible.
Now you understand Ateeqah's situation, right? That sometimes certain things are done in the dark, and you cannot ask questions, right? So now, in order not to risk becoming Ateeqah, I cannot ask these questions. So I'm just going to be quiet.
Okay, look. You look at motor workshops. You talked about this delivery thing. You look at motor workshops. The motor workshops were told to close a couple of days ago. Today, they reversed it. Oh, you can open up again. You know what I mean? We also scratch our heads and wonder why. I mean, you flip-flopped on this again. You know what I mean? So it confuses people. We don't understand. I really don't understand how they come up to conclusions like this.
Chris, just tell me about this. Why did they stop it and why did they start it? Do you have any idea?
Well, no, we just said we're going to be shutting down the motor workshops and all that. So I get a message from my dealer and telling me that they're shut from now till the time the PCB is over. Today, I get a message telling me that, hey, guess what? We're open now.
Let's not keep our guests sitting here waiting. Jamal, let me turn my attention back to you again here. Sure. So the relief measure, as you've just pointed out basically is expires today, which is Thursday, 30th of April when we're taping it. What would you like to see the government do if you had a wish for the community, not just in terms of financial help perhaps, but also in terms of recognition of the vulnerability and the difficulty of many of these families?
True. Yes. Yes.
Oh my. Okay. I think the Malay community has, for a long time, from time to time, you would hear this in news. We do feel under siege. We do feel that to some degree we are marginalized, and there's different varying degrees of truth in this. And it's always the most vulnerable, the most marginalized segments of our community who feel that government policies serve them least, or they are forgotten. That is definitely something they do feel as it's real, right? It's real to them whether it's perceived or not. And the fact that this recent things happen, before this there was the PMD skate scooter fiasco where they said no skate scooter, and now we have no home businesses. It doesn't take too much of a stretch to look like, oh wait, really the government is targeting me. It is about us. We are not liked here.
Perception is reality.
The perception is that, and also when you have a member of parliament, a minister come out and say, oh, it is irresponsible to incite. You're like, wait a minute, I'm not inciting. I'm vulnerable.
Asking for help.
Giving my feedback.
I'm vulnerable and I need help. Why is this inciting? And I think those tones we need to pay attention to those
Absolutely.
tones. Yeah.
Yes.
It can't be so thin-skinned, you know.
Yeah.
No. And also I think that there's a lot of people in the committee who are giving very objective comments, who are giving suggestions. And I think it's not a bad thing for us to listen to some of these suggestions. They could be put in place. And it would benefit more people than a clamp down on all their businesses and their livelihood.
Hey, Jamal, Jamal, there's this video that came out. I saw that one with Ateeqah. And she was sort of giving let me just summarize this. She was saying that the entire footage, the original footage, was manipulated. She had one in English, she had a segment in English, and after that she did one in Malay. I wish I could understand the version in Malay. What's your take on that?
I don't know. I only saw one video. I don't know if you can manipulate an Instagram video once it's up, and manipulate for how. The version I did watch, I didn't think it needed manipulating. It didn't sound like she was being mean. It didn't sound like she was sabotaging anyone. It really sounded like she was making inquiries. So I don't.
The second video, she said it was manipulated. Just wanted to
I didn't see the second video. I'm sorry, I didn't have that. But
that.
I also want to say some of the recommendations to have HBBs move to centralized kitchen, and this myth that a centralized kitchen would be cleaner, more sanitary. I have to say. I grew up eating my mom's and my grandma's food. They don't have halal cert. They were never trained by NEA. I'm still here.
All of us.
I think this NEA is very recent. It's 2002. We're suddenly so dependent on permits and licenses. To me, home businesses is a self-regulating industry. You sell to 100 people. It's word of mouth. Very small pool. If one of those 100 people gets sick, you're not going to get repeat customers. So it is in your best interest to make sure cleanliness. It's your own home.
Yeah, and it's your own home. You don't want to mess up your own house,
Yeah.
Unless
and then if you have centralized kitchens,
wouldn't want that.
We also have recent incidents where people who went to restaurants, centralized kitchens, even died from food poisoning. So to me, that is not necessarily a truth. It could be a myth. It might be cleaner to do centralized kitchen, but it might not.
Yes.
There's no guarantee there.
Yes.
So Jamal, I have a question for you. So do you think, after listening to everybody on the panel who totally agrees that this HBB is not a good decision, do you really feel, like you said, the bill that has been mentioned today by MP Intan, do you think they are now listening to the community, finally?
I
There
hope
is,
so.
there is this light, and yes, just like the shop, tomorrow you might just hear, yay, it's open.
I think it's important to listen to people who are vulnerable. They can be desperate, and desperate people can do desperate things, and we don't want that. I'm not saying they're gonna riot or anything,
Are
but
they listening? Jamal, are they listening?
I don't
That's the
know.
question.
I'm just saying they should. I don't know. I'm saying they should.
They may listen because
Yeah,
it's been
I'm saying
maybe
they
through the
should.
show.
Correct, because it's
Yeah,
over 70,000 signatures. So hey, in our humble opinion, we think they should.
Yeah, it's over 70,000 signatures. And if you go look, if you follow Facebook, you join a Facebook halal food group, you find over 100,000 people in there. This decision affects thousands of families.
Yes,
Uh,
Yes,
It's families, not just individuals, families, you know, and
Sure.
and those businesses affect others. I'm affected by it. I don't do home-based cooking, but I'm affected by it because now I can't get my food. So it pretty much affects everyone who eats. So we should really look into
No,
it.
and can I just share with you how much it has affected the community? Because when there was this mention of doing this story and you coming as a guest, I had taken a taxi to go to the hospital, and in the Grab, it was a Malay. There was a Malay driver, and I wasn't really clued on to what was happening, what Ateeqah, what, and I just spoke to him and I said. So, what do you think about this whole Ateeqah thing that is going on? Huh? And he took a second and he said, yeah, the Ateeqah, I don't know lah, but a lot of things going on, you know. But I know what is happening is not right. So I could make out that maybe he didn't know exactly what was happening, but it has reached him enough and it has affected him enough to know that all this controversy is going on, you know. And then through the whole ride, he was, you know, without any actual timeline or facts, so he kept on talking about how upset he was. You know, he was very emotional about the whole thing, you know. And he mentioned Ateeqah, I don't know how many dozens of times by the time I reached to my... So yes, it does affect the whole entire community. You're right, it does.
And if you were saying, would they listen? And if they did listen, could we have an extension to the what is this?
The temporary relief.
Yeah, the relief fund, right? So for the relief fund, for people to make certain adjustments, because people have ordered stuff. People have ordered raw materials, flour, eggs, and stuff, and those are going to waste. We can't cook eggs. I have a friend who makes loaves for lactating mothers. It's very niche, but it's very specialized. And now mothers who have trouble breastfeeding can't get to their loaves. So it's not just about your lowest common denominator trying to make ends meet. It's quite a broad
it could be a
spectrum
little
of
bit
people.
broader spectrum that people affected. Yeah.
You know, I think it's important for us to state that, you know, we definitely are not against COVID-19 measures in any way, shape, or form.
Of course not.
It's absolutely important. Yes. But I think that sometimes the government has a communication problem, and and sometimes even if my personal feeling is that even if they have got good policies, sometimes they're very ham-handed about it, very heavy-handed, and don't communicate this properly. And especially when you've got people who are really suffering and vulnerable, you cannot just simply lay down the law and then threaten and scold. You know, this will quiet the surface noise, but it will not do anything to alleviate all of the suffering and the anger and resentment underneath that. And I think they need to deal with that, because that's very important.
Gilbert, can I ask?
I don't think we should be scolded. Yeah, that's
No,
for sure.
Yeah. No, I just want to understand what you're saying, Gilbert, and it's so true. But do you think that it's a matter of face that they don't want to step back? So they acknowledge that, yes, what's happening has made a very strong impact. People are affected. And is it a matter of the government not wanting to show that we made a wrong decision? Or is it that they just feel that no, in spite of all this, we have to think of some greater good and we are not going to step back?
I don't think they need to say that they made a wrong decision or anything like that. I think they need to come up with more measures and clarifications, and just to communicate better, to say we acknowledge that there are people who are suffering.
No, but Gilbert, I'm not talking about acknowledging why they made the decision. I'm talking about there's this whole change that we want, and we want them to take that decision back and say, no, HBB will be allowed. I mean, it's different from justifying it.
I don't think they need to do that to alleviate the suffering. They don't need to do that to alleviate the suffering. You know, they don't need to say, okay, now we allow HBBs. You see, I think that maybe by providing more funds to a relief measure, that would help. That would go a long way.
No, because I was looking at it a different way. I was looking at it and saying, okay, there's always a time to review, because this COVID has taken people by total surprise. Nobody knows the next thing that's happening, and you try.
But we don't need to be taken by surprise by the people that govern us as well. You know.
No, true.
Jamal, could you tell us?
Would they take it back? Is my question. And should they take it back? Not only alleviate by giving a temporary relief fund. Well, that's
Jonathan dropped his laptop.
I got so excited. No, Jamal, I'm dying to know. So, after all this, what's the feeling on the ground? Would the community in general, the HBB community as well as the Malay community, prefer to have HBBs back, or prefer to have new relief measures?
That's the question. Good question.
What's on the wish list?
Okay, most people who do HPP are fairly responsible, intelligent Singaporeans. They know what measures they need to take place. They understand why the government is taking these extra measures. They do know. I think if the government was willing to enter into a conversation with them, they would very much support that conversation. They would find a compromise, because it is about their livelihood. But at the same time, I have to say there are also businesses out there who are affected more negatively, who react to this news more negatively, who are very angry. And if you read some of the comments on Ateeqah's social media in the past few days, anything on the situation really, some of them can be very nasty. They're really nasty. They're threatening her and her family. So the community, like I said, it's mixed. There's people who will work with the state, who will work for the new rules, and there's people who just say, no, I'm going to go do it anyway. And what we don't want is for those people who are angry to go underground. They go underground, we can't trace them, we can't sanction them, and that could produce more risk to contamination. Yeah.
Yes. And do you think Ateeqah has gone underground because of this doxing?
I would too, man. Wouldn't you? She's very brave. She went on Facebook Live to talk to Sujimi on Monday, and thousands of people went online to watch that. And I think most of them were there to goreng her lah. But she was only online and you could see on the comments they were relentless. However, I think that did not do anything for the community.
I think it clearly shows the level of anger out there, and she became an easy target for this. And I think it's important for the government to understand there's this real anger there, and for them to then think, how do we then manage this situation? You know,
the optics is not great. I mean, if you're promising me $500 that you're supporting me for the relief fund, but you're going to fine me $1,000.
Yes.
If I go ahead anyway, the optics is not great, man. Come on.
Yes. No.
You give $1, take $2. Don't like that, lah.
Yes, correct.
True.
Anyway, let's not take any more of Jamal's time. Guys, you got any more questions for him?
No. Jamal, thank you so much. I think you've really provided a lot of good insight and a very balanced and calm perspective on this. We really appreciate that, and congratulations on being the first guest here on our show. And set a very high standard now in terms of presence and articulation, and big shoes for the next guest to fill. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You set the bar, man. You set the bar high.
Be safe.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Be safe, mate. Thanks.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so what do we do now?
Wow. It's a very complicated issue. It's very complicated.
It is.
You know, I mean, I think the doxing part, which we brought up near the end, is something very important to think about.
Correct.
You know, that I mean, yes, definitely things will happen that will lead to certain communities being very angry. But I think becoming the bully on social media is never the strategy. You know, because all you do is then just teach people that bullying is a method that other people can use in the future against you.
And it's acceptable.
And it's not. So I think we all have to learn to be more humane on the internet, in the social media. We can express our views, express our disappointment, but we must not threaten people. You know, it's like walking in the streets with a knife in your hand. You would not want that in your neighborhood. Why are we allowing it on our feeds? You know, so I think the difference between being outspoken and free with our opinions and being violent in our response to others, I think we have to find that in ourselves, that balance.
Yeah, well said.
It's interesting because, you know, that certainly people being anonymous and having fake profiles and all of that is one of the reasons why there is so much toxicity in the internet, in cyberspace. It's interesting that recently, I don't know if you guys have read about this, but there was a guy who was going around posing as a woman and posting a lot of very racially inflammatory comments on Facebook. I think he called himself Sharon Liu or something like that.
Yes.
So he thought he could hide, and but the authorities tracked him down and they found out who he is. And you know, I think that's a good warning for those people who think that they can hide from, you know, the responsibility of their comments by coming out with fake profiles. And you know, that's important. I think people need to realize that they cannot get away with that, and neither should we as a society tolerate that sort of nastiness, racial racism and xenophobia that people throw out there, basically like bombs. Basically, you know, they're cyber terrorists. You know, so
and it actually also becomes like a herd mentality. Like Jamal was just sharing with us, you're talking to the radio presenter, and there are yet people, because I think there's anonymity and there's numbers. So you feel that if you have got a lot more people agreeing with you, you are already in the right, which might not be the case, you see. And then
that being said, I think that it's important for us to recognize also that on this issue, the people who are angry, I think, are justified in being angry because it is their livelihood. The methods that they react to, some of them, not all of them, some of them, by, you know, threatening her or her children, all that is obviously never correct, you see.
Absolutely.
No matter what the cause is, you pervert the cause when you resort to those kinds of measures to express your anger. But the anger and the pain and the suffering is very real. It's just that the community, any community, you know, whether it's the general community of Singaporeans or whether it is one particular community, needs to find ways to express themselves and to effect change. And then again, very importantly for the government, to be open to listening rather than simply reacting and saying, you shut up, you know, you shut up. Like some old school teacher from the 1950s, you know, don't talk back. We know best. That's never a way to govern, you know. And generally, I think the government has been pretty good at this. I'm just surprised in this instance that they have been so tone deaf and ham-handed about this.
Gilbert, let's just hope. I mean, especially in a time like this, it's Ramadan time. It's time to forgive, to move on, to forget. So like we said, we just hope that they can hear and they can feel this anger, and you know, and they do something about it. They can reflect on what their community is asking them, especially in these holy times, you know.
All year round.
I don't want to play down the fact that we need to really, you know, flatten that curve during this time, right? I'm not going to play that down. I mean, that's all important.
Important.
Sure, you know?
Yes.
But at least if we're given some semblance of an explanation of really the reasons why we need to stop the HPP, it wouldn't be so bad. I really don't think so. Singaporeans are not a dumb bunch of people, you know. We're educated enough and sensible enough to know.
You know, the communication problem that the government sometimes has.
Yes. I mean, my only gripe is that tell us the reason why. Explain it to us. You know, it cannot just be my way or the highway. Yeah, sure, you're the authority, but we need to understand reasons why. And if you tell us, and I think people would actually be quite appreciative of the fact, you know, and bite the bullet. Yeah, I think a lot of businesses outside of HPB, people have really really bitten the bullet. They have taken steps to, some of them lost a job, some of them no more income at all. Some businesses are so affected to the point that, post-COVID, they might not even exist anymore, correct? So people have really taken a big bite of that bullet. And we've proven it, that we can do it. We're sensible enough to understand the reasons why. It is about life and death, so tell us why. But then again, all that being said, the doxing,
that's
two wrongs don't make a right.
agree,
Yeah?
agree.
Two wrongs don't make a right. We can't be bullies, man. Right? And I, personally speaking, I hate bullies. I really hate bullies. I am want to be a bully, against bullies. So, because it's just so wrong. Yeah? So no matter what, even if you're affected, we can understand. And yes, it's painful, but two wrongs do not make
a right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree.
Yeah. So, by the way, guys, somebody tell me, please, I think John tell us all about this. The Coronavillains.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about Mohamad not long ago, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
So
let's talk about the Coronavillains.
No, in the previous episode, we talked about the virus vanguard, right? Which were a bunch of heroes launched by
disappeared.
Yeah, very suddenly, right? Appeared and then vanished. And I think literally that very same night, I got in touch with a wonderful, very gifted comic artist, a good citizen, very, very satirical, very, very witty. And I said, we should respond to this somehow, and we said, what shall we do? I said, I don't think that there's any point having heroes when the villains have not been identified. So let's talk about the villains. And very quickly, we just started brainstorming, and I started writing these characters. And then he started doing some sketches, and then we bounced it back and forth. And we came up with 5 Coronavillains, right? Who are sort of representative of all the things that you have seen around you, that some of us may have been a little bit guilty of in action, or at least in our minds, And I think it's very useful, to recognize our own flaws before we start expecting heroes to come and rescue us. Look into your own hearts and say, okay, I'm a bit of a corona villain sometimes. I'm tempted to do this. I'm tempted to gather with my friend, even though I shouldn't. I'm tempted. Yeah, and recognize that it's about behavior, right? So we launched that just a couple of days ago, and it's been running around on the internet, and I'm quite excited about it because people seem to be quite happy to recognize themselves in the villains.
No, but it's a good.
Okay, John. So John, let me ask you, man. Since you are the brainchild behind this, you wrote the whole thing, right? About the Coronavillains. What villain name would you give Gilbert?
No, but who are the villains? I mean, of course, we need to buy the book to see everything, so we don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, tell us the villains in your comic.
Yeah, it's not a book yet. Again, it's just the concept there,
Yes,
but there are 5 Coronavillains, right?
Yeah.
So we have Antibiotic, right? Antibiotic thinks that she has all the cures for the virus, whether it's drinking bleach or hot water or whatever, and she will readily share on all social media all these magic cures, right? With such confidence. So antibiotic. Antibiotic. Right? And then I'm sure everyone has an antibiotic in your family, right? And then we have Panic Boy who rides a hoverboard, right? And the moment there's a hint that PM is going to address the nation, he is queuing up and ready to empty the shelves.
The panic.
Yes, Panic Boy, right?
Yeah.
And then we have Xeno, Warrior Princess, and she's on the she has 2 faces. On one face, a serious concern about the numbers, about health, about security, but her real face is let's blame the foreigners.
Wow.
It's the foreigners flouting the rules. It's the foreigners raising the numbers. Send them back in a pot, and that's her heart, right? So Xeno, Warrior Princess. And then we have my personal favorite is Fat Chop. Right, Fat Chop is this sort of singlet uncle who hangs around the hawker center and just decides that he should eat his food right there. He sees no reason why not, right? Because whatever the rule is, for him is chop. Does not apply to him. Everyone else can follow by Hichok. Okay, yeah, I think that one is very identifiable for most Singaporeans.
Okay, don't run away from my first question, John.
Wait, last one, one more.
Okay, sorry.
Last one, and this one also very important. Her name is Ambassador, right? So unlike our wonderful red-shirted ambassadors who go around helping to make sure people, abide by the rules, this ambassador is out to shame people. So she's the kind who will like follow you when you're jogging because you're not wearing a mask, and the moment you stop jogging, will film you. Yes, that's her. So these are the five.
Okay, now you're gonna do this.
Fortunately,
what would you name Gilbert? What will you name Gilbert, man?
Well, Gilbert's not a villain. right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, what do you name me?
You're chickening out, John. You're chickening out.
Okay. I'll come up with the name, but I won't say whether they are villains or heroes. Okay.
So there's a little villain in all of us. There's a little villain in all of us. So you have to.
It's so tricky. Okay.
Yes. Don't chicken out.
I think. Okay, Gilbert is going to be Captain Stats. All right. Who will defeat you with his well-researched numbers. Whatever you think you know, Gilbert knows better because he has. All right, so he's very powerful. He's like kryptonite to everyone else. Is like,
oh man, how appropriate!
Captain Stats is here to tell you.
Thank you.
Chris, yes, totally deserved. Okay, and okay. Chris, you're actually dressed perfectly, okay? It comes from what you said just now. I think that you are the bully, okay? You are the one who bullies the bullies to teach them not to bully. All right? You are merciless.
I wish.
When it comes to defending the downtrodden, all right? Full of passion, full of life, full of anger. I think that's wonderful, okay? So maybe you're a hero rather than a villain, right? Daisy, oh dear. Okay, it's because of the outfit especially, I'm very inspired, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think we'll call it. I want to call you Daisy Chain because the name is there, right? Okay. You're a Daisy Chain, but your power is empathy, right? Like a daisy chain, you link the flowers. So you find positivity linked to positivity, and then all together we are strong as a chain. So thank you for
John,
doing
that's
that,
so
Daisy.
sweet. I was all geared up to listen to the villain, the auntie part, but this is so sweet. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to throw this one to Gilbert. Gilbert, what superhero or supervillain name will you give John?
Yeah.
God, this is true. I'm very bad at living like that. I'll come back next week.
Okay.
He'll come back with his stats and be able to clearly say why he thinks John should be
with
what
stats.
based on statistics.
Facts
Okay, so
first.
that's homework for you, Gilbert.
You have 1 week, Gilbert.
It's been nice, guys, today.
Yeah,
Okay.
so please share the Coronavillains with your friends, so spread the word around, let them identify
Sounds
themselves.
cool. Yeah.
And hopefully it goes on somewhere, Thank you everyone for joining us. And special thank you to Jamal for being our first guest and such a wonderful guest.
Thanks, Jamal.
Yes, to clarify such a difficult situation. I think in closing, I want to say to all the people who are affected by this recent HPV situation, I think we understand it's difficult. We understand it's upsetting and it's frustrating, and we don't want you to feel that you are alone. I think that there are many Singaporeans, us included, who are on your side, and I think now is a time for a lot of change to happen. Because of COVID, I think many things are socially possible that weren't here before. So I think let's band together, let's ask for answers, let's ask for explanations, and let's make some change happen. Know that you are not alone. Whatever you want to fight for on your behalf, we will fight with you.
Yes, that's very nice, John. And I agree. And I say that there are lots of challenges. Like you said, we are confronted with new problems, new dangers also maybe. And we just have to get together and deal with them. Because like somebody said, tough times never last, but tough people do.
Yes.
That's great, Daisy. And for me, I think that this home-based business thing has exposed something, which is that there are people who don't understand the fuss behind it. And I just like to say to you guys that just because it doesn't affect you personally, don't dismiss it.
Yes.
Other people's pain is still other people's pain, and it still is a struggle. And whether it's the home-based businesses that are suffering or whether it's the foreign workers, you need, and we all need, to get into the other person's shoes and see how they are suffering, and don't dismiss something just because it doesn't affect us personally. And be compassionate. I think that is really a key thing, is to be compassionate. Be safe and be kind. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to ask people in general, please be kinder. Don't be selfish by saying that other people are being selfish, because I think that's so wrong. Always look in the mirror first and not judge someone else. There are people who are in pain. There are people who are suffering. And for those of you in the home-based business, I got one thing I want to say. Once this whole thing is done and you're back up and running, I will keep ordering from you guys.
Yes. Well said.
And I'll do whatever I can to make sure more and more people order from you guys. Okay? Because you would have earned it.
Yes.
And don't let this stop. For the Malay community is affected, don't let this stop your holy month of Ramadan. Don't be so angry. Don't hate, not during this time. And look forward to Hari Raya.
Okay.
Have a blessed month. And okay, with that, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of IOHO. And don't forget to also like and subscribe. Watch out for us. We are practically everywhere now. Yeah, Spotify. Besides YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're on Spotify. So catch us there as well if you want to listen to the full show. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you again real soon.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
IOHO, in our humble opinion.
Hey, shut up lah.